when we look at successful entrepreneurs, and not just entrepreneurs, also sports people in any arena really, who have done extraordinarily well, what they share is a high tolerance for stress and discomfort. And this is a skill set that you can build, and it's just as important as any kind of strategic capacity that you might build. If you want to grow your business, learning to increase the capacity of your nervous system to tolerate stress and fear and uncertainty and confusion and discomfort is a really, really important step along the way. And that's going to be the subject of our conversation today. I'm Madeline Eliza, leader, writer, performer, and founder of Bhakti Lab, an incubator for soul-led entrepreneurs. Join me to explore the edgy intersection of the brain and the body, feminine and masculine, ancient and modern, sensual and spiritual, to help you liberate your personal power and turn your biggest, boldest visions into reality. Hello and welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking about how to expand your capacity as an entrepreneur. And this episode is brought to you by my new business, Bhakti Lab. This is an incubator for soul-led entrepreneurs, founders and CEOs who want to turn a big blue sky vision into reality. I have spent a decade partnering with founders and CEOs as an integrator. So I'm the person working alongside the visionary founder who helps to turn that vision into a tactical pathway for delivery. My skills are in execution and breathing life into that vision. So I'm going to talk more about that at the end of the episode today. But if this is something that you think could help you in your business and you'd like to explore doing an intensive session with me to get your year started with a bang and get you heading in the right direction with a really clear, concrete pathway for how to bring your biggest visions to life, then I'll pop the link in the show notes. You can book a free strategy call with me. All the details are on my website at madeleineeliza.com. If you want to ask questions or just have a chat, I'm super happy to jump on a call with you. So you can find all the links in the show notes below, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what I offer at the end of the episode as well. Just wanted to get started by introducing Bhakti Lab. So welcome to the show. We're going to be talking about how to expand your capacity, and I want to start, I went to see the Wicked movie at the cinema, which many of you have probably seen, the movie and or the stage show. And at the very end of the film, Elphaba is at the top of the tower in Oz, and she's being chased, she's being unfairly persecuted, and she really doesn't want to get captured. And she's discovered that she has these magical powers, but she doesn't really understand them yet. She can't really trust them. But she does this spell for flight, and this broomstick rises off the ground, and she thinks, well, I think if I jump out of this very high window holding onto this broomstick, hopefully it'll fly and I'll be okay. And she leaps out of the window on the broomstick at the 11th hour. There's men pouring in trying to capture her and take her prisoner. And she leaps out, and for the longest time, she just plummets straight to the ground in abject terror. And then at the last minute, the magic kicks in and the broomstick lifts and whoosh, she's up and away. And I had goosebumps. I think I actually ended up in tears watching it because it just came at the moment for me where I needed to see that. And it resonated so deeply because that is the journey of entrepreneurship, isn't it? We take wild leaps of faith and we hope that our magic will work. And when it does, it's the most extraordinarily exhilarating feeling, and we find ourselves soaring through the sky, metaphorically. And I wanted to open with that because, A, it's very resonant if you're on the journey of entrepreneurship and trying to build something from nothing and to muster up the self-belief that's needed to carry yourself forth into new uncharted territory. And also because there's that moment in the leap where we're plummeting towards the ground and we don't know if we're going to make it. There's this discomfort, this uncertainty, this fear and confusion. And in my experience in entrepreneurship, and I've been doing this for over a decade, that's an inevitable part of the journey. There's no shortcut where you step neatly out of the tower and take flight. It doesn't work like that. You have to learn to hold yourself through the fear and the discomfort and the terror that sometimes unfolds as part of this journey. And it's like cleaving to this faith and cleaving to this self-belief that even though there's so much fear and discomfort in my body, I believe in myself and I know that I've got this, and I've got this rock solid center within all of that. And when we look at successful entrepreneurs, and not just entrepreneurs, also sports people, performing and creative artists, people in any arena really who have done extraordinarily well, what they share is a high tolerance for stress and discomfort. And this is a skill set that you can build, and it's just as important as any kind of strategic capacity that you might build, or any learning how to build funnels, or whatever is your focus as an entrepreneur in growing your business. If you want to grow your business, learning to increase the capacity of your nervous system to tolerate stress and fear and uncertainty and confusion and discomfort is a really, really important step along the way. And that's going to be the subject of our conversation today. So you might actually like to pause this and make a note of personal practices that you currently have to manage stress and fear, which inevitably arise if you're on a journey of building something from nothing. I know for me, exercise is super important. Nutrition is really important. Personal practices of meditation and yoga and mantra and movement. All of these tools are really helpful. And as I said, you might like to pause it and make your own list of practices that you know regulate you and help you to stay centered and grounded, even in the face of the buffeting winds of entrepreneurship. In addition to those practices which you might have, and also faith, like religious faith, spiritual faith, whatever your spiritual practice is, spiritual practice has been a really big part of my journey, and it's something that I feel like I've had no choice but to implement and integrate and to turn to, because I've just walked through so much fire. And turning things over to a higher power, surrendering up my challenges to the divine in whatever capacity that is for you. But for me, that's been a really foundational part of my ability to grow through adversity rather than be squashed by it. There's this term post-traumatic growth, which I've spoken about in a previous pod, I think the last episode of season 1 about mental health and post-traumatic growth. I kind of expounded on that term. But when we go through adversity and challenge, we can either become smaller from that or we can become bigger. And for me, faith and the connection to the divine has been a really big aspect of my being able to grow and become bigger through adversity rather than being squashed and contracted as a result of it. So having personal practices to keep yourself grounded is wonderful. Mindset work can be really helpful here. Having connections with friends and family, whatever it may be. I invite you to reflect on what those practices are for you. Like, what can I turn to when this business is stressing me out so much that I just feel like turning my tail between my legs and quitting? Because we've all been there and we all go there, and it's just part of the journey. It's developing skills to hold yourself through that. I want to also introduce this concept of the nervous system and the ways that we can increase the capacity of our nervous system to support with this work. So as you may be aware, I've spent 2 years working alongside Jessica Maguire, who's an incredible nervous system educator. If you're interested in this work, she runs an 8-week program. I think it's still 8 weeks. It may have been updated, but going into a great deal of depth and detail around the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, which is our fight or flight reflex, our reflex to collapse and shut down, that more dorsal vagal state, and also things like freeze, which we hear a lot about on social media, but I haven't come across anybody who explains it as articulately and insightfully and impactfully as Jessica does. So if that's an area you're interested in learning more about and you want to go deep with lots of practices as well as theory, she's your gal. I just want to touch on a couple of aspects of the nervous system as they pertain to entrepreneurship in this conversation today. So we've all heard of fight or flight. These are sympathetic responses of the nervous system when all the blood rushes to our extremities, and this would typically happen if we were faced with a threat in the wild, and our body prepares to either fight the threat or to run away from it. So it's a very primal response of the nervous system. And a lot of people in today's world, with all of the digital stresses that we have, we get stuck in this state for much longer stretches of time than is really healthful or helpful for the human body. So that's what we call a state of hyperarousal. It's we're up. We can also come down. If you look at what's called the ventral vagal state, is this zone of calm, regulation, kind of feel-good space in the middle of the nervous system experience. And then hypoarousal, when we're down, is where we experience things like collapse and shutdown. We're more prone to things like depression when we're in this state. We might feel withdrawn. We might have like slower brain activity, brain fog, those kinds of things. This is what's known as the dorsal vagal state. So these are the three primary states of the nervous system. You've got sympathetic arousal, the ventral vagal state, which is like where we want to keep coming back to, and then the dorsal vagal state. There's also blended states. So you can think of this as being a little bit like a paint box. If you mix blue and yellow together, you'll get green. So if we mix the sympathetic state, that hyperarousal, racing thoughts, stress, anxiety, panic, reactivity, with the dorsal vagal state, which is that lower energy level, more depression type symptoms, this is the freeze state. So you might have heard this referred to as functional freeze. Again, I think Jessica's way of explaining it, where you've got hyperarousal, hypoarousal, and then a blend of those two is freeze, where we might have a lot of charge in the body and in the mind, but we feel immobilized and unable to take action. And you might find yourself doom scrolling or binge eating or doing any number of those activities that we kind of use to numb and dumb ourselves out. That's the freeze state. That's a blended state of those two extremes. The other blended state, which is relevant to this conversation, is the state of play. And this is where we have the ventral vagal state, which is where we're feeling calm, regulated, grounded, able to be really present with people socially. We feel a sense of ease. When that is blended with the sympathetic state, which is where fight or flight lives, we have a bit of that sympathetic charge. This is known as the state of play. And if you are pushing for a deadline, if you are pitching investors, if you are presenting on stage or performing on stage, if you're on a first date, these are some of the situations where we might move into that state of play, where we have a sense of energy mobilized in the body. It's like our senses are sharper. We're more present to everything that's going on. And there is a sense of pressure and a need to perform, but it's not a negative. It's like a healthy version of stress mobilization. And people who are successful, as I said, in whatever field, business, sports, arts, whatever, they're able to stay in this state of play for longer and then to return back to the ventral vagal state to discharge that stress mobilization and then go back into that state of play again. So this is something that you can train your system in. And if you've spent a lot of time in fight or flight, then moving into play can feel scary because it feels a bit like the fight or flight response because you feel that stress mobilization. And it can have us pull back from really exploring our potential because we're not wanting to put ourselves in uncomfortable situations. But this is the type of dwelling at the edge of your comfort zone or the edge of your window of tolerance that can, over time, really expand your capacity. And you might find, for example, the first time that you speak on stage, you have a lot of stress mobilization and you feel very nervous and you're having all these, you've got sweaty palms and all these physical symptoms as well as the racing thoughts saying, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this or whatever it might be. But by the fifth time you speak on stage, you're much more comfortable because your body has increased its capacity to tolerate stress. And this is a really important skill that's not often spoken about with entrepreneurship, because if you want to be successful in bringing whatever your vision is to life this year, we need to learn how to operate in these edge zones. And I feel really passionately about this. Before I had this language around the nervous system and the state of play, I've spent a lot of time in my life really pushing my comfort zone and really pushing my edges and operating in a space where I wasn't comfortable because I knew intuitively that it would increase my capacity. I've spoken about this again. I think in that mental health and post-traumatic growth episode, I spoke about this in more detail, so I won't go over it all again. But this is a concept that's very resonant and very relevant for me and my journey, because I have grown through taking bold action again and again and again and trying different things and repeatedly pushing myself outside my comfort zone and taking on projects that were bigger than I thought I could handle, taking on performances that I knew would stretch me. I sailed across the Atlantic Ocean. I had a home birth. Like, I'm always looking for ways to push my capacity because I know that I'll grow from it. And I think having this nervous system lens is a really helpful overlay to that type of experience. You've probably had experiences like that as well if you think back through your life. Often these are the most rewarding experiences that we have, where we're not sure if we can pull something off and we stretch and then we deliver. And afterwards we look back and go, oh, I've done that once. I know I can do it again and more. So this is what it means to expand our capacity. I really recommend playing with this, and play is such a key word here. It's moving into a space where we can kind of surf the waves of stress, and we move with the stress, and we find ways to turn it into a game without being glib or flippant, because I realize, I've worked in very high stress environments and it's real. It's not just like change your mindset and it'll feel like a fun game. No, it can be very real and very overwhelming. But the more we can cultivate these skills of nervous system capacity expansion and moving into a mindset of play. And the other thing I think is really important here is managing our own energy. And that's something I've been so focused on in recent years. That's why I talk about learning to cultivate and harness your life force energy. That's why I think Tantra is a really powerful set of tools as well as this nervous system work, because it's different pathways to the same outcome, which is increasing your own capacity and increasing your ability to fulfill your highest potential, so that you're not constricted by old stories and old patterns and limiting beliefs and limiting ways of being in your body in the world. You can kind of really stretch your wings and feel safe doing that. And one final comment on this is that we don't develop confidence to then take action. Taking action is what builds the confidence. It's taking that leap of faith. It's doing the thing you've never done before. It's taking bold new initiatives within your business that you're not sure if it will work. If you can sit and think and strategize and plan until the cows come home, but until you take action, nothing changes. You don't suddenly become confident enough to take that action that you're scared of taking. You gain the confidence through the taking of the action. And again, that's something that I've seen play out time and time again in my own life. And I'm not the only person speaking about this. I think it's really verifiable. And I just want to add that in as a bit of an adjunct here, that when we're talking about expanding our capacity, the best way to practice this is by taking bold action and calculated risks. Like, don't go and throw yourself off a metaphorical tower. Maybe start with something a bit smaller, and then over time, you'll gain the courage and the confidence to take bigger and bigger risks and bigger leaps of faith. The other thing that I think is really important in terms of building your capacity as an entrepreneur is having support, and the right type of support. If you've got family and friends who have never owned their own business, who are not familiar with this arena of taking calculated risks and also like investing in yourself in order for long-term gain, they're probably going to advise you against it. And they're probably going to advise you to play safe and to stay within your limits and to keep doing your sensible job, and don't take a leap of faith because you don't know if it's going to work, and that sounds really risky. If you can surround yourself with people, like-minded peers who are doing the things that you want to be doing or that you are doing, that's the type of support that we want to build. I have made the mistake of talking over big, crazy business ideas with friends and family who aren't wired the same way as me, or aren't interested in living their lives, or have slightly different values. And it's not really helpful. So I think being discerning about who you allow into your inner circle and who you seek support from is a really important part of this journey of increasing your capacity. And kind of stripping back the layers that are holding you back so that you can step into your full potential. I've been living and breathing this work for over a decade. As I mentioned, I've been deeply immersed in the world of entrepreneurship, working across many different industries, working with many different wonderful founders and CEOs, and also on my own spiritual journey as alongside that. And it's all kind of towards the same aim of peeling back the layers, stepping into my fullest potential, and being able to really powerfully contribute to the world at large. And so I have landed on this new business offering, Bhakti Lab, which, as I mentioned at the start of the episode, is sponsoring this show. And I wanted to just share a little bit more about that if this is resonating with you and you'd like some help and support, because one of the other ways we can gain support as an entrepreneur is by supporting ourselves with people who complement our skill set. And if you've got lots of big visionary ideas, possibly a touch of shiny object syndrome of, lunging at one thing after another because you just feel so excited about all of these ideas and concepts, but you need some support in grounding those ideas in the physical world and bringing them to life, I may be able to help you. And again, I'd invite you to jump onto my website, madelineeliza.com, and you can book a free 20-minute strategy call to talk through your business goals for this year and see if I might be able to support you with that. So I describe myself as an integrator. This is using Gino Wickman's language from his book Rocket Fuel, of the visionary and the integrator as the two facets of leadership needed in high growth businesses. And the integrator is like the operational leadership central hub of the business, who can take the big vision and turn it into a tactical pathway for delivery. So my skill set incorporates all of that operational work, translating your vision into a roadmap to actually bring it to life in a realistic kind of time-boxed way, and also streamlining your existing operations. So I work with founders and entrepreneurs who are just starting out, or as I mentioned, maybe leading like a client services business, wanting to move it more into an online space or to scale what they're currently doing. And I also really love working with scale-ups where the business might be turning over $1 to $5 million in revenue annually and starting to experience some growing pains. And I really love and am skillful at coming into a business like that and doing a diagnostic analysis and identifying the priorities that need to be streamlined operationally, and also identifying the major growth opportunities and being able to sift through and pinpoint the clearest pathway forward. So they're more kind of operational skills that I offer. And then I think because I've spent a lot of time in creative practice, in spiritual practice, in devotional feminine embodiment practice, I also offer this capacity to act as a sounding board for you as a founder and for you as a human being to really witness you and to help intuit your deepest strengths and your soul callings and your soul yearnings, and to pull those forth in a way that's really encouraging and supportive, and to help you intuit what it is that you're here to do and how do we get you doing that as quickly as possible. I'm also skillful at clarifying if you've got a jumble of ideas, which is very common, by the way, a jumble of ideas and things that you know that you need to do, but it's not quite clear where you should start. I can help you with clarifying that, hearing the signal in the noise, cutting through the chaos and creating real clarity and bedding that down so that you know exactly where you're going and you can just run forwards. So there's some of the things that I can help you with. I have been doing this for some time. There's a number of written recommendations on my website as well if you want to check out my work. Again, the link is madelineeliza.com, and I'll pop it in the show notes. I'd love to chat with you and see if I might be able to help you. And regardless of that, wanted to wish you a very happy, abundant, joyful, love-filled 2025. And yeah, best of luck in expanding your capacity as an entrepreneur so that you can go forth and conquer and do whatever it is that you came here to do. You're amazing. Thank you for listening and have a beautiful day.